right. Dominic and Stefan, are you here today? Not entirely sure, but I wanted to say thank you because I couldn't have asked for a better opening yesterday on product thinking for platform engineering. And I think a clear pattern is emerging. Also what we've heard from yesterday's talks is the product thinking in platform engineering is everywhere. And this is also because slowly code and infrastructure are not becoming the mode anymore. And software developers, platform thinking is becoming the prime thing in software engineering and also for platform engineering. So I think most of us here in this room, we are building products for people who build products. What could be more user-centric? But I think in my experience, and this is really paradox, that we often build platform for ourselves and not for the users. And I'm wondering, why is that? So let's openly share some pains in platform engineering. This is the platform feature graveyard. This is where platform features go to rest that are never used. Like, for example, my amazing shell script that only took me 3 months to build and nobody uses. And I want to ask the audience, who has been to the place? Can you raise a hand? I think many or most of us. Why is that? So I think in platform engineering, there is one repeating core problem. That we are actually pretty good at building things. We are also very efficient at building things. But we often don't build the right things and realize too late that they're not being used. And this is why I'm here today. Today, I want to show you 3 techniques to avoid this problem. Now, before I start, I want to share personal stories. In my earlier life, I had been a B2C product manager, right? So building products for consumer products, apps, for examples. And if you didn't do a user interview every week, your company would cease to exist. This connection to the user was prime. Then 7 years ago, I somewhat accidentally became a product manager in the DevOps space, and I came to my team, bare metal wizards, Jenkins experts, and I went in there and I said, we need to do user interviews, we need to do use labs, we need to use analytics, and so forth, and they were shocked. I think now this has become more and more normal, and product thinking is slowly more and more emerging in platform engineering, which is a good thing. And today, I want to share with you what I've learned over the past 7 years in this space and how I think we can quite easily do much, much better than today. So, short introduction, who am I? So I'm working for this company called 1,5 or 1,5 Grad. They also have an office here in Munich. We provide renewable energy solutions for private households. We serve around 200,000 energy systems. And one of the few climate tech unicorns in Europe. Click. I'm the head of product, and in my past I usually worked in the finance industry. And when I'm not doing this, I like to climb mountains. Anyway, the first technique that I want to share with you. Build, measure, learn. Who knows the build, measure, learn cycle in here? Anyone? Quite a few, right? This was a technique pioneered by Eric Ries in 2011, and basically he said that the product development cycle has 3 distinct phases. First, you build a product, then you measure how customers respond, and then you adapt, right? Either you go forward and improve, or you ditch it. Now, does it work for platforms? Let's find out. Here's a real-world example that some in the audience might know. This is circa 2020. The problem here was we scaled up our Kubernetes cluster. We had around 100 microservices, and all of the engineers in our company, they had their own bookmarks to find the Argo CD deployment across the different stages and the logs and tracing and whatever. And we figured, okay, I think we should make this easier. And so we created this very simple app that showed the state of Argo CD applications and links to where you can deploy and find the logging and so forth. And then we looked at it and we found damn, a lot of people are using this. So we kept on investing it. But we weren't really sure, okay, what can we improve here? So what we did is, we did some user interviews, asked people, what is it that you need, that you want? Then we implemented a couple of new features and surveyed them. What do you think? Give us a rating. We did that again, the rating improved. And then, this is how it looked eventually. It came together quite neatly. So I think you can say, yes, the cycle works. And by the way, eventually we just ditched it because if someone does it better, you gotta kill your darling. And we just ditched it and it became backstage. And all of this, what I just showed, was pre-backstage. So kind of like our first internal IDP. Anyways, so I think we can say, yeah, this is a good method to bring you a little bit farther away from the platform feature graveyard. But I think what you can see in this graph is, maybe we can do even better than that. Now, let me show you a not so good example. This is a backstage scaffolding, and it's beautiful. It scaffolds GCP infrastructure, cloud and service, with all the permissions and everything that you need. And it has 47 features, 15 bells, 5 whistles, and 3 users. We built something amazing, and nobody really used it. Why is that? I never really validated if users actually needed it. The development was based on conviction. This used to work in my previous company, but it didn't in this one. So I thought, okay, build, measure, learn. Maybe something is off in this cycle. Maybe we shouldn't start by building things, but rather by questioning things. So let's turn around the cycle a little bit and start with learn, with validating if we actually need the things that we think the users need. Does it work for platforms? Yes, it does. Let me show you how. Now, and before I begin this, I need to show this key slide. I hope everybody really pays attention now, because I think this is maybe the most important slide of my presentation. And that is, I think there's a lot of misconception around when we build platforms, and it took me a lot of time to learn this. You're building for the 80%, and these are your average software engineers. It's not your platform engineers or your expert software engineers. And the problem here is the one on the left and right-hand side, they are your most vocal users. They will give you the most feedback, and naturally, you will tend to build your product around that feedback. But it's not who you should be building for. You should be building for the many in your organization, not the few. Now, and you can apply this to everything, even your gigantic Terraform monorepository. And let's just say, maybe we had a messy Terraform setup, maybe, and our team was convicted. We need to refactor this, and these are the patterns how to do it. Let's act quickly. And I was thinking, I'm not so sure. Should I spend a couple of quarters on migrating Terraform code? Is there maybe not something more useful we could do? And so I asked our users, right? This was a really large survey. We covered most of the user base. And they said, nah, it's actually quite easy. It's not an issue. And shockingly, the majority said, well, actually, I only modify resources once a month or even less. So should I refactor this? No, I don't think so. And I'm happy we didn't. We built something much smaller, and you can read up on that. It's linked in the slides, it will be shared later on. We did refactor the code a little bit, but basically we grouped it around the backstage system model, and we got this neat side effect that we also label each and every resource doing that. But you can read more about that in the resources. So, and this is another big insight, right? Actually, in the book, Eric Ries, he described that. But who really reads the book, right? So, but your MVP is not the code. Actually, you should avoid code whenever you can. And there are so many easy ways to build an MVP, because what is an MVP? An MVP is a way to get feedback, right, on what you're trying to build. So to reduce the uncertainty on your assumptions. And this can be as easy as doing a survey or even just writing a Slack direct message to a couple of people. What do you think about this idea? Or you can hop on a quick call, write an RFC, structure your thoughts, gather the comments. Or you make a video recording, right? I want to do this and that, and then you share it in a public channel, get some feedback. The MVP is not code. Now, I'm not alone here. This was shared yesterday as well, this book, right? So some other people on the internet think that too. Let me show you another example. Introducing or not introducing Kubernetes. You have to know the company I'm working at, we are serverless first. And in the beginning, I heard that a lot. We need Kubernetes. We need Kubernetes and we need Argo CD. Why? I mean, arguably, we had back then image updates in Terraform. That was a bit cumbersome. But what did we need Kubernetes and Argo CD for? For GitHub-style workflows, for easier rollouts, for easier rollbacks, and just for a better developer experience. And that was understandable. But I was thinking, OK, if I now begin to introduce Kubernetes, how much time will I spend doing that? And how much complexity will I bring to the developer's table? Will this actually improve their lives? And so we thought and researched, is there maybe not something else we can do? And yes, we found something. Actually, you can deploy Cloud Run with service YAMLs, and you can stitch it together with Helm. So basically, you get a very similar experience as doing deployments with Kubernetes and Argo CD, but without the complexity. And well, only a couple of months later, after we introduced this, the deployments went up like crazy. And this actually became a little product. Helmless.io is won the poster conference session at this year's KubeCon, and you can read more about that in the resources that will be shared later on. Anyway, but just to set things in balance. And these numbers, just ballparks, but should I introduce Kubernetes? Or should I invest into improving my Cloud Run? When there's literally no difference for my developers. And I know I'm offending many of you now, but I think it's really important to think like that. What is it that the organization actually needs right now? So, another offending slide, but it's really important that we step back and do not the things that we want to do and build the platforms that we like, but rather serve our 80% of customers. Now, this technique, I think, has brought us even a little further from the platform graveyard. It's a good thing. But I was wondering, is this really the most focus we can achieve here? And I realized another thing. Maybe there is another technique. And it's spinning the build, measure, learn cycle up on its head. So it's not starting with build, it's not starting with learn, it's starting with measure. Starting with a goal. Let me explain that. Does it work for platforms? Yes, it does. Let's start with a simple, mundane example. Troop 3 nines of availability. So 8 hours of downtime per year is OK, or something like 40 minutes per month is OK. So you're a platform team, or you try to deliver a platform for some organization. How is it you can improve this number here for the teams? And now, before I can explain that, I need to explain two concepts very quickly. So, of course, this number is affected detrimentally by incidents. So when you have an incident, you notice, oh my God, there is smoke, right? So fire breaks out, you notice there is smoke. This is the mean time to detect. Then you begin fixing and eventually pop the champagne bottle. This is the mean time to resolve. And all of this feeds into the downtime. Now, when I think about 3 nines of availability, then I have a truckload of ideas how to improve it. And this is exactly not how we should go about it. Rather, we should think, OK, if that's the goal, what are some sub-goals or some sub-metrics that I, as a platform team, can influence to improve this. All right, I already talked about 2 metrics here, there are many. And we figured out, yeah, let's focus on the mean time to detect an incident. And we looked at the data for our organization, and we always spend a lot of time on getting really good data on incident data, so this is the luxury we have here. But we figured out mean time to detect is a much bigger problem in our organization than the mean time to resolve, right? So we are good at resolving incidents, but not as good in detecting incidents. And then we thought about, okay, if that's the problem, how can we improve it? And we set out a goal. We said, okay, let's try and reduce the mean time to detect for a specific system and cut it in half. And this is what we came up with. We call it the critical user journey monitoring. And basically what we did is we went to the product manager of the specific product, we mapped out the critical customer journeys, and then we put synthetic monitoring on it. This is basically browser testing. And you might be thinking, wow, you did a selenium test. And exactly. It's not about the brilliance of the idea. It's about the effectiveness of the idea. So, and after implementing this, we could see that the mean time to detect was reduced by an order of magnitude for the organization. Also, the mean time to remediate was lowered because the debugging possibilities got better, and we were able to reduce the alert noise. Right? We were able to kick some out for the new ones from the browser testing. And I think the most astonishing thing is, if you practice this a little bit, it will only take you a week to get there, 1 week to time to value, versus all the other things that I could improve. And this slide here is more of a special slide. This is something different. This is translating your work into words that a business stakeholder will understand. So there's a little back of the napkin calculation here. And basically it shows what is at stake every hour that this critical user journey is down. And this is something that will make a business stakeholder understand why what you are building as a platform team is important. And I think we should be doing this much more often. So another key insight that I had is really translate the impact that we are having as platform teams in the organization into business numbers, and they needn't be perfect. Stakeholders are totally fine. Ballpark estimates, back of the envelope calculation, that's all I want. If you don't have any business metric that you can go from, you can also use DORA metrics, right? This works for software, but also for infrastructure. So let's take one example of DORA metrics, right? Change lead time, and then change lead time, so the time from commit until that commit reaches production. It consists of many different factors or many of different time chunks. And it's just pick one time chunk, and it could be the build time. And you could say, maybe from the data, you know that this is one of the biggest problems, and you could set the goal to reduce this by 50%. But anyway, what you get now is this working backwards and being able to explain your stakeholder why you're doing what you're doing. So, yeah, as I said, this also works for infrastructure. You can also look at the change failure rate for infrastructure, or your lead time for changes, or the deployment frequency, right? So you can also optimize your infrastructure flows with that, not only software. And this is the key insight, right? Working backwards from the goal. Now, and I felt this is the third technique that I just shown you that has brought an even farther away from the platform graveyard and enable us to focus on more on providing value. And this is one of my key realizations. And I think this is my one weird trick for you in the audience here to apply product thinking from the next day on, is turn this upside down and start with a goal before you build. If you've built something, think What goals is this actually touching? And I want you to take action tomorrow. Take a piece of paper and a pen and write down, what is the business goal that I, as a platform practitioner, can positively influence? How can I break it down into sub-metrics that I can control as a platform team, where I can help? And then think of the ideas to realize this, because then you can work the way backward and explain your stakeholder why this is the best idea. Now, why I'm telling you all of this, because I want us to have our platform features not land in the platform Clarified, but rather land in the platform features Hall of Fame. That's all from my end. Thank you so much. And last thing, if you want the slides and context, some resources that I mentioned in the slides, you can scan this barcode. And there's a little hurdle, feedback on the presentation, but it's only a star rating, and then you get all the resources.